Chapter 4. Crew. The cardboard boxes that have lined the front hallway for the last week are piled directly in front of the elevator when the doors to my penthouse open. What the hell? I push 2 stacks aside, wondering if the movers messed up the dates. The building staff would have notified me if they showed up early. The only way up here is through the front desk or with the code only a few people have. The mystery is solved when Asher appears, wearing basketball shorts and a ball cap reading Best Man. What are you doing here? I grumble, dropping my briefcase atop a box and pulling off my jacket. And what the fuck are you wearing? He grins. I told you I was throwing you a last hurrah. Farewell to bachelorhood and all that jazz. And I told you that we'll keep getting drunk and picking up women after I'm married, so there's really no point in doing anything. Well, I didn't listen. Pizza will be here soon. So will Oliver and Jeremy. I can feel a headache forming as I walk into the kitchen. You invited Oliver? Yep. And he said yes? I open the fridge, debating what to eat. While I deliberate, I grab a beer. I wouldn't drink that, Asher tells me. I pause. Why? Because I've been reliably informed it's a bad idea to do the activity we'll be partaking in tonight, drunk. What the hell kind of bachelor party is spent sober? We go out and get drunk all the time like you said. I got creative. With a sigh, I stick the beer back in the fridge. I'm going to change. Don't move any more boxes around. Put on something you'd exercise in. Asher calls after me. I grumble a response as I walk down the hallway toward my bedroom. Boxes litter this room too. I've lived here for less than a year, since I graduated business school at Yale and moved back to the city for good. It's strange to see it so empty. Most of my belongings are being shipped to Scarlett's, since she insisted on remaining in her place after our wedding. I was informed, via her attorney telling mine, our main mode of communication, that I was welcome to stay in my own penthouse following our marriage. I have no burning desire to cohabitate with a woman. The only urge outweighing it is the fact I don't share Scarlett's apparent willingness to leave our lives completely unchanged, once we share the same last name. There was a time my younger self dreaded marriage as a prospect involving a clingy wife and no freedom. Fucking laughable in hindsight. Scarlett seems loath to so much as to talk with me. I change out of the suit I've been wearing all day, into a cotton t-shirt and a pair of joggers. New York has been unseasonably cool for June. Candace even called me on Monday to ask if Scarlett was reconsidering her strapless dress. I let a long silence answer for me. In the short time I've known my father's second wife, I've come to the conclusion she lives in a fantasy world. One where my father views her as a comfort, not a convenience. One where Oliver and I look at her with lust. One where I give any thought to what dress Scarlett might wear on our wedding day, and how warm or cold she'll be. That last one isn't much of a stretch though. I went so far as to search photos of strapless wedding dresses, just to know what to expect. I've never seen Scarlett look anything short of devastating. I have a whole lot of apprehension about seeing her on our wedding day that I'm certain most grooms don't grapple with. Lines between us have blurred. Boundaries have sharpened. I can barely think straight when I'm around her. I'm hoping that's a problem that will magically disappear soon. When I re-enter the kitchen, Jeremy and Oliver have arrived. Jeremy Brennan has known me almost as long as Asher has. He's not a native New Yorker. His family is from Boston. We went to the same boarding school in New Hampshire. Then both ended up at Harvard. He remained in Boston after Asher and I left for Yale, graduating from law school there a couple of weeks ago. Jeremy grins as soon as he sees me. Here's the groom. I roll my eyes as I give him a hug and a slap on the back. Past the bar yet, Brennan? Knew I should have stayed in Boston. His hometown's heavy accent saturates each word, sinking syllables in the lazy drawl. Things I do for you, Kensington. Especially since I didn't get so much as a cigar from you for graduating from the law school that spews out presidents. That I do feel bad about. I was planning to return to Harvard for Jeremy's law school graduation. Not just send a gift. Back before my marriage became imminent. I'll make it up to you. Jeremy shakes his head. I'm mostly fucking with you, man. I know the job was you. Everyone in my year wanted the position at Kensington Consolidated. I owe you. All I did was mention your name, I tell him. It's true. We both know that's all it takes when your last name is plastered on the building. All the gift you need will be watching Crew try to manage his bride at the wedding, Asher tells Jeremy, opening one of the boxes of pizza that's appeared on the granite counter of my kitchen island. Fucking hilarious. He adds around a big bite of pepperoni and cheese. I grit my teeth and reconsider opening a beer. Mysterious activities be damned. Asher insisted on accompanying me to St. Patrick's Cathedral for the one joint wedding-related event neither Scarlett nor I were able to get out of, meeting with the priest. Neither of us have a wedding party. It was Scarlett's request, and one I was happy to go along with. I would have wanted to ask Asher to be my best man, which I guess he picked up on given his hat, and would have been obligated to ask Oliver instead. Since the lack of bridesmaids and groomsmen limits the number of people involved in the nuptials themselves considerably, the meeting also involved going over the logistics of the ceremony. Evidently, Hanson Ellsworth decided he didn't need any guidance on walking Scarlett down the aisle, so it ended up being just the two of us sitting and standing in total silence. I'm surprised the priest didn't suggest couples counseling. Asher didn't witness any of the awkwardness inside the cathedral. He's referring to the fact that Roman, my driver, pulled up outside the cathedral at the same time as Scarlett's car did, meaning he had a front row seat to the tense encounter that marked the first time we'd seen each other since the dinner at my family's estate several weeks ago. An evening meant to build bridges. Between me and Scarlett, they burned. You remember Scarlett, don't you? Asher asks Jeremy. Jeremy grins. She's hard to forget. I had a class with her freshman year. Managerial accounting. He grins. She gave the professor a run for his money. Only reason I understood cash flow analysis. You talked to her? I asked, taken aback. During our college years I was grateful my path never crossed with Scarlett's. Happy to fuck around with whatever, and whoever, I wanted with no reminder of the responsibilities waiting for me following graduation. I never considered my friends might have talked to her. Done more than talk to her. Jeremy shrugs as he grabs his own slice of pizza. A couple of times. I mean, there wasn't a guy in that class who wasn't trying to tap that. My jaw clenches with something that feels a lot like jealousy. I mentioned Crew once trying to impress her. He continues, then laughs. Had the opposite effect. It took me until sophomore year to figure out why. He glances at me. Still don't get the whole arranged marriage thing. Leave that to the royal family. Crew isn't all that broken up about it, Asher replies. Without lifting a finger, he's marrying the hottest woman I've ever seen. I look Oliver's way. He's remained mostly quiet as he munches on pizza. I'm surprised he agreed to come to this. I'm not surprised he's currently reading on his phone. Something related to work, no doubt. We finish eating and then head out. Asher holds firm in his refusal to share any details of the evening's plans. When the elevator doors open to the lobby of my building, it's just beginning to grow dark outside. Asher and I follow Jeremy and Oliver, who's still on his phone, toward the doors that open onto the street. Halfway there, I notice a woman standing at the front desk. Her back is to me, but she's wearing jeans, a white blouse, and a pair of pink heels. I trail my eyes up from the splash of color, tracing her curves up until I reach the elaborate braid her brunette hair is pulled back in. Hair the same color as Scarlett. The woman's shoulders rise and tense. Lower, like she's letting out a long breath. She didn't come here to see me, that much is obvious. Never mind, I hear her say before she turns around. In what I guess is her idea of casual attire, she still stuns me. Nothing about her is what I thought was my type. Not the superiority complex or the snappy retorts. Her red lips are twisted into what could best be described as a sneer as she studies me. I was hoping not to see you. Bluntness is a trait I used to think I did appreciate. Asher does a shitty job of muffling his laugh. That explains why you're in my building, I retort. Scarlett sighs. Since you're here, I need to talk to you. Her glance at Asher is pointed. Alone. I can take a hint, Asher says. See you outside, Crew. My eyes stay on Scarlett as Asher disappears to join Oliver and Jeremy on the sidewalk. Scarlett holds out the envelope she was attempting to hand off at the front desk. Here. Store it somewhere safe. I open it and glance inside. There's a plastic keycard like at a hotel, and a piece of paper with a series of numbers written on it. You got me a wedding gift? You'll need the code to call the elevator and the card to get into the penthouse. If you want to fuck before we're married. Scarlett cuts me off with a laugh, like the idea of us having sex is a ludicrous one. That's not what this is. I won't be home on Saturday night, and since you were so insistent on living together, I cut her off. What do you mean you won't be there on Saturday night? I'm flying to Paris as soon as the reception ends, Scarlett replies. For a work thing. No, you're not. The dispute is automatic. It's our wedding night, and she's planning on flying to France? I probably shouldn't be surprised, but I'm shocked. Yes, I am. Jacques Dou has a waiting list for years. I called in 10 favors to get this meeting with him. It's our wedding night. I don't care. Do you normally clear your schedule for the night after a merger closes? I exhale instead of saying something I'll regret. What is your meeting about? Based on the way Scarlett sighs, like the question is a major inconvenience, she was hoping I wouldn't ask it. Why? She challenges. I say nothing, just stare. She sighs again. I'm starting a clothing line. Jacques Du has worked with every prominent designer in the last decade. His input, his ideas, they'll make a big difference in the success of the brand. This is why you changed the prenup, I realize. The earning potential for Haute is nothing compared to a clothing brand, especially one created by Scarlett, soon to be Kensington. Public interest in the both of us has skyrocketed since our engagement was announced. We're a fairy tale, minus the ugly stepsisters or the poor beginnings. If I hadn't, this could be a conversation. But I did, and you signed, so it's not. If I need to go to Paris for a meeting, I'll go to Paris. It's only the timing I have issue with, I tell her quietly. I didn't have expectations for our wedding night, but I definitely had hopes. Fantasies that required her to be in New York City, not the capital of France. Her brow wrinkles for a minute before it smooths. I can't change the timing, Crew. Fine. I don't even know why I'm bothering to argue. Fine, she echoes. Glances away from me, looks back and sighs. I wrote my cell number down in there too, in case you have questions about the building. I could lie, but I don't. I have your number, Scarlett. She raises one eyebrow. I didn't give it to you. I know. I got it a while ago. I thought about reaching out to you a few times. Thought it might. I shake my head. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Go wherever you want, Scarlett. I will. She's getting what she wants, yet she still sounds pissed. Rather than push, I nod toward the door. That all? Her chin jerks up. Yes. That's all. She spins and heads toward the glass doors that lead to the street. Great, I mutter sarcastically as I follow. Based on the way her shoulders stiffen, she heard me. Asher, Jeremy, and Oliver are all waiting out on the sidewalk. Leaving so soon, Scarlett? Asher teases. I don't usually loiter around apartment buildings, she replies. Where are you gentlemen headed to? Crew's bachelor party, Asher replies. He spins his best man baseball cap around so she can see the front. I know you lovebirds decided to limit the crowds up front, but I couldn't resist. Cute, Scarlett comments. I almost smile. You should come, Asher suggests. Scarlett clears her throat. What? Crew is way more fun to be around when you're here. I shoot Asher a sharp glare for that comment. This isn't a wide-eyed socialite he's baiting. In 2 days, the woman beside me will be my wife. There's a line and he's crossing it. Let's go, Asher. He shrugs. Sure. This will be a challenge for us anyway. Let alone a woman. I close my eyes and mentally call Asher every name I can think of. My best man just ensured my fiancé will be at my bachelor party. The rock gym is crowded when we arrive. I'm surprised. The number of people here demonstrates a higher interest in the activity than I expected it to have. This is exactly not what I thought my bachelor party might be like. Climbing fake cliffs with my fiancé in tow. Scarlett heads for the small store attached to the gym, probably to swap out the 6-inch stilettos she's wearing for shoes with a flat bottom. She says nothing to me before she leaves, keeping the void of silence that's hovered between us intact. It stretched the whole drive here, interrupted by polite small talk, mostly between her and Jeremy. I think she's lying about remembering him from the class they supposedly shared, and I hope that means one of my closest friends doesn't know more about my fiancé than I do. I can't believe you, I tell Asher, as he pulls out a pair of what are apparently rock climbing shoes I'm sure he bought just for this occasion. I told you I didn't want to do anything. Then you plan this and invite her. Asher smirks as he tugs off his sneakers and yanks on the shoes that look like rubber socks. This will be fun. I came with Charles Goldsmith last month and it was a blast. 2, you're welcome. Your blushing bride will barely look at you, and it's obviously bothering the shit out of you. You like her. I scoff. What are you, 10? I don't like her. I'm stuck with her. My father would permanently disown me if this marriage doesn't happen. Doesn't last. It has nothing to do with Scarlett. Although, I glance at the display of climbing shoes visible through the glass wall separating the store from the gym itself, where Scarlett is talking to a sales associate. It doesn't seem like it would kill her to act like it's less of an inconvenience. What did you expect? You've said for years this is just business. It is. And she's making it harder than it needs to be by acting like this is personal, not professional. Although I started it, I suppose. I've never wanted to kiss anyone more than I did in that library. Maybe she's worried it is. I contemplate that for a few seconds, then dismiss the possibility. I think resigned would be a better adjective. She wants to live separately for fuck's sake. But you aren't. I had to shove 20 boxes aside to get into your place. Not by choice. Hers or mine. I emphasize the final word, because Asher seems to think I'm excited about this sham of a marriage. The only part one was looking forward to seems to be on a permanent hold. After our encounter in the library, I had my doubts about a traditional wedding night. Following the surprise trip to Paris she just sprung on me, I'm harboring no hope. You agreed to move into her place. It was that or go another round with the lawyers. If she wants to stay in her penthouse so badly, I don't really care. It's probably just as nice. It's nicer, actually. Scarlett's voice sounds behind me. There's a private entrance for the penthouse, and I have my own doorman. I spent 5 minutes waiting to talk to one of yours before you popped up like some sort of crew in a box. I'm glad my back is to her. It makes it easier to hide my smile at her made-up phrase. When I do turn around, it's to discover Scarlett has made her outfit as rock-climbing friendly as possible. Her long hair is pulled up in a ponytail, exposing the elegant column of her neck and the hollow of her throat. The pink heels are gone, replaced with a similar style to what Asher is wearing, and the sleeves of her white blouse have been rolled up. A whole 5 minutes? I drawl. What a devoted fiancé you've turned into, honey. The newfound devotion is expressed with an eye roll. Oh, there's Dave, Asher exclaims, sounding more excited than I've heard him sound about anything that didn't involve women, booze, or cars. Apparently, he was serious when he said he's come here before. Dave approaches us, matching Asher's enthusiasm. If I passed Dave on the street, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to learn he works as a rock climbing instructor. His dreadlocks are pulled back by a purple bandana, and he's wearing an easygoing smile that would look wildly out of place in a boardroom. Hey dude, Dave greets. Back already? Yep. Brought some buddies too. We're celebrating this guy's wedding. Asher claps me on the back, and I force a smile I'm sure comes across as more of a grimace. No way. Dave looks like the idea of having a bachelor party here has never occurred to him, and I wish Asher could say the same. Congrats, man, he says to me. Thanks, Dave. Not many people have congratulated me about my upcoming wedding. They've acknowledged it, nodded knowingly, told me good work or well done. Every one of them has known why I'm marrying Scarlett. But I don't know how to tell Dave I'm a multi-billionaire marrying for money, so I do my best to act genuinely enthused by the prospect, made easier and harder by my fiancé's presence a few feet away. I'll go grab you guys some gear, Dave says. There's 4 of you? 5, Asher corrects, nodding toward the front desk where Oliver is standing talking on the phone. He took a call as soon as we arrived and hasn't moved since. All right. We usually start in pairs. Dave glances around then looks at me. How about you wait for the straggler? He smiles at Scarlett. We can work together. I don't wait to see if it's an arrangement Scarlett will protest. No. She and I will work together. Dave raises his hands in an all-good gesture. Sorry, man. I get the overprotective brother thing. I'm the same way with my sister. Asher snorts a laugh. Jeremy starts coughing. If I looked over at Scarlett, I'm guessing she's wearing the same expression of horror I am. Dave looks between me and Scarlett, his dreadlocks bobbing with each confused movement. Oh, are you two not siblings? No, I grit out. She's my fiancé. I just assumed, he trails. Never heard of a fiancé attending a bachelor party before. We like to do things together. How I managed to say that sentence with a straight face I have no idea. I'm equally impressed no one laughs. But Dave nods, looking completely serious. I get it. My folks are the same way. They each get one activity to indulge the other one on since they hate doing things separately. My mom hates football and hasn't missed a Giants game in 20 years. My father couldn't draw a stick figure but goes to an oil painting class with her every week. Dave pauses and smiles. I bet you guys will be just as happy. Whose activity is this? His eyes bounce between us again. I'm slow to speak after that. I've never witnessed that sort of relationship in person. I know my father loved my mother. She may have been the only person he's ever loved. When it comes to me and Oliver, he hands out occasional praise, not affection. However he expressed any sentimentality toward my mother, I was too young to remember any of it. Crew. Scarlett clears her throat. This was Crew's idea. Excellent choice, man. Dave smiles at me before his attention returns to Scarlett. And what are you going to pick? She stalls. For the first time ever I see Scarlett look unsure. Rather than revel in it, I scramble to come up with some random hobby I can blurt out. Golf. It can be anything, Dave urges. Anything you've always wanted to try. We doing this or not? Oliver appears, phone in hand. If not, I'm heading back to the office. You can think it over some more, Dave tells Scarlett, then turns to the rest of us. I'll meet you all by the wall over there. He points vaguely toward the right before heading to the left. We're surrounded by nothing but walls. Not just the 4 typical ones, but lots of additional ones covered with colorful fake rocks meant as continual handholds. Do we think he's qualified to teach people how to scale cliffs? Jeremy questions. Dave's great, Asher replies. Super chill. That's exactly what I'm worried about, Jeremy replies. Super chill isn't the first qualification I'd consider in an instructor. I ignore their bickering and ask Oliver. What was the call about? My brother grimaces. Powers wants to come back to the table without the marketing division. He's folding. Oliver nods. He held out for longer than I expected him to. Me too, I agree. Dave reappears with ropes and harnesses for a short tutorial on what we're supposed to do in order to leave the ground. Despite Jeremy's misgivings, Dave seems knowledgeable. I'm more concerned with the woman beside me than Dave's laid-back personality. If anything, his ease is a welcome addition to the group. Scarlett seems to be growing tenser by the second. Once the demonstration ends, we're sent off to a corner of the gym. Asher immediately starts climbing while Jeremy spots him. Oliver is further down talking with Dave, probably trying to get out of doing this. Scarlett clips on her harness and stares up at the rock face that extends 50 feet up in the air. I stare at her. She looks over suddenly, catching me studying her profile. Well, I prompt. Well, what? Well, are you going to climb the damn thing or not? I drawl. Give me a minute, she snaps. For what? The wall is right in front of you. Just grab a handle and get started. It's easy. I never said it was hard. Then why aren't you climbing?
I'm preparing.
I scoff. Preparing for what? Preparing to put my life in your less than capable hands. I'm not exactly overflowing with confidence in your ability to catch me. You're wearing a harness attached to a rope above a foam mat. Of course I'm not going to catch you. Don't be ridiculous. With charm like that, it's shocking anyone tells you no, she retorts. Her words are sharp and her stance is confrontational. But there's something hovering beneath the annoyance, obvious in the way she won't meet my gaze and is fiddling with the strap of the harness. Tell me what's really wrong, I demand. I told you I'm Scarlett. Her teeth sink into the full bright red of her lower lip. I've avoided looking at her mouth. The last time I paid it too close attention I almost kissed her. I'm about to say her name again when she answers. I'm apprehensive about being too high off the ground. The meaning sinks in slowly. You're scared of heights, I realize then laugh. Are you kidding me? That is not what I said, Scarlett replies hotly. I just 6 one way, half dozen the other, I respond. Say it however you want, that's what you meant. She considers that. Fine. Heights aren't my favorite. I laugh again. Unbelievable. You're really that stubborn? You came to a climbing gym and you're scared of heights. 1. You're not Mr. Easygoing yourself. 2. I didn't know we were going to a rock climbing gym. Your misogynistic friend didn't specify when he invited me. Asher is far from a misogynist. He loves women. Scarlett rolls her eyes. Loving women and respecting women are 2 different things. I feel a sudden urge to defend Asher, despite the fact he's the reason I'm standing here arguing with her. He respects women too. Do you? I stiffen and glare. What the fuck kind of question is that? You're marrying me, and you don't think I respect women? I didn't say that you don't, I asked if you do. You've got a creative way of saying everything, huh? Her chin rises as she glowers right back at me. You want to know why I came here, crew? To prove myself. Because I always have to prove myself. When you show up at Kensington Consolidated, people don't assume you're there to meet your dad for lunch. They don't think they know more than you do about the company that is your family's legacy. They don't wonder about who you'll marry because they assume that person will have a say in their job one day. We may be similar in some ways, but we are not the same. She unclips the belt and steps out of the harness. I was annoyed she came. Now I'm irritated she appears to be leaving. What are you doing? Everything okay over here? Dave appears, his calm face showing only the slightest hint of concern. In his world, things probably go according to plan. He probably doesn't even have a plan. Fine. Scarlett gives him a small tight smile that anyone with eyes could see is fake. Unfortunately, I have to go. She doesn't even make up an excuse. Thanks for your help, Dave.
Scarlett, I start.
She walks away without a word, brunette ponytail swishing, mocking me with each step. Scarlett only pauses to change back into her heels. Then she's gone, cutting through the crowded street and out of sight. I'm beginning to wonder if I'll ever watch her leave without a mixture of anger and regret. For my sanity's sake, I sure. Chapter 5. Scarlet. My mother starts crying when she sees me standing in my wedding dress. I'm not expecting her tears. After almost 30 years of marriage to the emotionless void known as my father, I didn't think there would be much sentimentality on display today. Just appreciation for the hasty planning it took to pull off what every news publication is calling the wedding of the century. In the past 6 weeks since my engagement to Crew was announced, every detail of my wedding has been considered. Every possible problem accounted for. Every minute accounted for. This is an unplanned one. Sophie and Nadia snuck into the room off the transept, where I've spent the morning getting ready to say hello. Sophie was the one who begged me to show them my dress. I've only worn it once since I approved the design, for the fitting to confirm my measurements hadn't changed. I take all three reactions in: Sophie's wide eyes, Nadia's gasp, my mother's tears, before I turn to stare at my reflection. I love this dress. Love it more than I should. Love it more than any other article of clothing I've ever worn. It's strapless. The line of my collarbone and curve of my shoulder are exposed above the intricately detailed corset, alluring without being outrageous. The hand-stitched lace leads to layers of cloud-soft tulle, and a sweeping train that trails several feet behind me. I've never felt more beautiful than I do wearing this dress. It's a gown meant for a bride who's excited about her wedding, who has no doubts about anything, much less her choice of groom. Somewhat unfortunately, not to mention surprisingly, I fulfill both criteria. Hovering in the doorway, I watch my mother swipe at her cheeks before she speaks. I figured I had another 20 minutes before she returned from running through every detail with the wedding planner. Again. Scarlet, why are you wearing your dress already? Your hair still needs to be done. Nadia and Sophie both startle at the sound of her sharp tone. I know it well, though. It's much easier to mask emotions under harshness than happiness. I know. I'll change back. I smile at Sophie and Nadia. I'll see you guys after, okay? They take the offered out, slipping back out of the room immediately. I'm left to change and face my mother. I hang my wedding dress back inside its bag and pull on the silk robe I was wearing before, over the white lingerie my husband won't see. You're ready? My mother asks. For more than the hairdresser, I gather. I inhale, then make the request I've debated since I woke up this morning. I expected it to feel like an ordinary day. None of it has felt that way. Not showering or eating breakfast or riding to the cathedral where I'll become Scarlet Kensington. Is Crew here? My mother studies me, curiosity burning in the hazel irises I inherited. Of course. She sounds offended by the mere possibility he might not be. Any hiccup today would be more than a slight against me. Can you get him? My mom sighs. Scarlet, if you're having second thoughts. I'm not. I just want to talk to him. I don't think that. I cut her off again. Mom, please. Maybe it's the please that convinces her. I'm not sure the last time that word was spoken between us. From my mouth, at least. Okay, I'll ask. She disappears out into the expanse of the cathedral that's filled with people preparing for the wedding or guests showing up extra early for good seats. I'm all alone in here. The star of the show and the pariah. I'm nervous. I didn't think I would be, and it's the final sign that this is not a business deal. A merger like any other. Maybe it is to Arthur Kensington, to my father, to the rest of Manhattan's elite, who have all gossiped about the possibility of this day for years. To Crew. But for me it's different. Telling myself it isn't won't change that fact. This is my wedding, my marriage. It's personal. When the door opens again a few minutes later, I know it's not my mother. I can just tell. He came. You're not wearing your dress. I turn to face him. You're not supposed to see me in my dress until I'm down the aisle. I didn't think you were the superstitious type. Or particularly sentimental. Crew says the words casually, before slipping his hands in his pockets. He looks relaxed, completely at ease about what is about to happen between us, and it loosens the tight knot in my chest some. I don't want our first kiss to be out there. I blurt the statement, which is really more of a request. Something about today, the dress and the dreaminess and the date itself, has led me to the very real realization today is my wedding. In all likelihood, I'll never have another. I'll be married to this man for the rest of my life, and I've never even kissed him. Should it bother me? Probably not. But it does. Something akin to amusement settles in his face. Is that so? It's tempting to back down, but I don't. Yes. I study him, trying to get a read on what he's thinking, feeling. I come up blank. He's as effusive as an empty page. You were basically begging to kiss me a few weeks ago. I remind him of our moment in the library. A ghost of a smile flickers across his face, As if that memory is a fond one rather than a frustrating one. I remember. So, I'm growing impatient. Annoyed. Why can't anything between us be straightforward? Do you? Do I what? I'm rapidly regretting this entire idea. He's right, it's not like me. Maybe this marriage won't last, and it'll never matter anyway. Remember. My spine straightens like it was just injected with lead as the implication hits. You can't be serious. Crew tilts his head to the left, showing off the sharp line of his jaw. It tightens as his expression turns daring. Beg me, and I'll kiss you, Scarlet. I search for the right insult and come up short. I can't believe you. I warned you, baby. You're just pissed I hurt your pride. Crew doesn't respond, but a muscle ticks in his jaw. Begging is not happening. I'm not that desperate. See you on the altar, baby. The nickname holds no sentimentality, only mocking. He doesn't move. There's a long, heavy silence, weighted down by second-guessing and appraisals and regrets. Ask me. Ask you what? Ask me to kiss you, Scarlet. Isn't that what this conversation has been about? Honestly, I've lost track. It's become a push and pull, a battle of wills. Each of us feeling out what we're willing to give up, what we won't agree to concede on. I don't ask for things either. I take them. So do I. We stare at each other at a stalemate. I want to kiss him. Badly. I've never wanted to erase the distance between my lips and someone else's more. He wants to kiss me. Just as badly, if his tense posture is any indication. Pride keeps me in place. He doesn't move either. I need to finish getting ready. I say it softly, a fact not a foot out the door. I'm not backing down. I'm not giving him an excuse. Crew releases an exasperated sigh, like some major inconvenience is taking place. I'm expecting him to turn and leave. Instead, he approaches me with the conviction of a conquering king, diminishing the few feet separating us with a couple of long strides. He cups my face, his fingers brushing my cheeks, as he tilts my head back and forces my gaze to meet his. Tell me, he demands. I question him with my eyes, tempted to sway into his touch. I'm losing ground, and I blame his close proximity for encroaching. It's hard to think, to breathe when he's touching me. Tell me to kiss you, Scarlet. His thumb traces my bottom lip. Goosebumps rise on my skin. Shivers race down my spine. He's compromising. Ceding. It prompts a heady rush of power. I didn't capitulate. He did. With anyone else, I'd perceive it as weakness. But this doesn't make me think less of Crew. It makes me want him more. Kiss me. The E is still hovering in the air between us when he complies. His lips crash against mine, demanding and urgent and commanding. The hands gripping my face are gentle. His mouth is anything but. The wet heat of his tongue invades my mouth, forcing a moan out. Crew Kensington tastes like whiskey and mint. Sin and seduction. Pleasure and power. And this is exactly why I told him no in the library. I knew we would be this combustible. I knew if I let him, he'd burn me. Consume me. I can respect him. I can explore my attraction to him. I just can't care about him. Success isn't built on good intentions and consideration of others. His lips leave mine. Too soon. I want to kiss him until I'm out of oxygen. I want to relish the way he makes me forget this is fake. When I open my eyes, he's staring straight at me. I have no idea what to say, how to reconcile who we were before and who we are after that kiss. A distinction I didn't think I'd have to make before saying I do. That's when before and after were supposed to start. I'm realizing as my lips tingle and my pulse pounds, it might have started a long time ago. I clear my throat. You should go. If he's bothered by the immediate dismissal, he doesn't show it. Crew nods once, brisk and businesslike. His hands fall away from my face, and I immediately miss their warmth, their possessive presumptuousness. See you out there. I watch him turn and walk away, warring with myself. He gave me an inch. I can do the same. Marriage is about compromise, right? Crew. He pauses when I speak but doesn't turn around. My eyes coast over his broad shoulders, stretching the tux jacket tight. Unlike me, he's already wearing his wedding attire. I'm glad he doesn't turn around. It makes it easier to spit out. Thank you. He doesn't look back. The door closes behind him a few seconds later, leaving me alone, surrounded by shoe boxes and cans of hairspray and the products painted on my face, waiting for the hairstylist to appear so I can change into my dress and walk down the Chapter 6. Crew. I hear her before I see her. Subtle sounds alert me to Scarlet's approach. There's the glide of satin and silk and whatever else wedding dresses are constructed from across the marble floor. The whispers of the crowd. the swell of the music before it reaches the crescendo that's supposed to signify her arrival at the altar. According to the one time we practiced this, I'm not meant to turn until Scarlett has reached the final pew. I'm happy to comply. I wouldn't know how to look. Stoic is my default setting. That's not how a groom is meant to look, watching his bride come down the aisle. We're supposed to be selling a love story to everyone who is in attendance today. Stock in our family's companies has skyrocketed since our engagement was announced a few weeks ago. Scarlett and I are the faces of the future. The stronger we appear, the better. Deals fall apart. Business partners part ways. Marriages are made of tougher stuff, at least in our world. Divorce is rare when fidelity isn't expected, and each party will end up poorer for it. My cue to turn appears. I look to the left. Without realizing it, I started holding my breath. I don't exhale, even when my lungs begin to burn. I don't move, even though I'm supposed to take a step toward her. I just stare. The first time I saw Scarlett Ellsworth, I was 15 years old. So was she. We were both kids playing adults. I was wearing a custom suit I'd outgrow in a couple of weeks. Scarlett was wearing a floor-length gown, heels, and makeup. I was drunk, off Thomas Archibald's father's scotch. Breaking into studies and sneaking expensive liquor was a common pastime at parties on the Upper East Side. I thought she was beautiful then. I've thought she looked stunning every single time I've seen her in the 10 years that have elapsed since. Scarlett possesses a classic, timeless poise that provides the same presence as actual royalty. But today, she's devastatingly, heartbreakingly beautiful. The untouchable sort of regal. An ice queen. A snow angel. A moon goddess. She walks toward me on her father's arm, surrounded by a waterfall of white organza. Her brunette hair curled in an elaborate updo and her lips painted their signature crimson shade. Hanson Ellsworth doesn't walk her all the way to me. He stops at the last pew, and Scarlett takes the final steps toward me alone. When she reaches me, I demonstrate more staring. More not moving. It's not customary for the bride and groom to pause before approaching the priest, and the rustling of the audience emphasizes that. Hi. I clear my throat. Ready. Ready. There's no hint of hesitation on her face. I rely on her confidence like a crutch. You look. I flip through adjectives that all fall short. The best I can come up with is stunning, but it doesn't say everything I'm trying to. Scarlett looks away after I compliment her. Up at the altar where we're about to get married. Thank you. We start up the short row of steps that lead to the waiting priest, side by side. The priest launches into a speech about the sanctity of marriage. I don't pay close attention to any of the readings that follow. I'm mostly focused on not looking over at Scarlett. We're on display up here, and I'm no longer worried about appearing too indifferent to her presence. I'm concerned about the exact opposite, giving away too much. When it comes time for the vows, I have no choice but to look at her. Scarlett hands off her bouquet, and we're stuck staring at each other while the rings are blessed. I go first. When we met with Father Callahan, he asked if we would be writing out our own vows. Scarlett and I talked over each other in our haste to let him know we'd be sticking with the traditional ones. I wasn't worried about saying them, but suddenly these words, ones that millions of people have said millions of times before during millions of weddings, sound far too intimate as I look at her. I, Crew Anthony Kensington, take you, Scarlett Cordelia Ellsworth, to be my wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish until death do we part. I slide the diamond wedding band onto her ring finger. I give this ring as a sign of my love. The priest looks to Scarlett expectantly. She doesn't need any prompting. Her voice is clear and unwavering, echoing off the glass windows and the marble floor and the dark wood. I, Scarlett Cordelia Ellsworth, take you, Crew Anthony Kensington, to be my husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish until death do we part. She slides the platinum wedding ring onto my third finger. It's far from heavy but impossible to ignore. A reminder of her I'll always see, whether I want to or not. I give this ring as a sign of my love. If I weren't watching her so closely, I would miss the flicker of trepidation as it passes across her perfectly painted face. Scarlett knows what happens next, same as I do. I wonder if she's more or less apprehensive about this kiss following her request earlier. You may kiss the bride. I watch Scarlett smother the urge to roll her eyes. She obviously doesn't appreciate the priest allowing me to kiss her. But I'm close enough to see her breath hitch and her eyes widen. She wants to kiss me, she just doesn't want to admit it. I take a step forward slowly, deliberately. Actions I don't usually think twice about, I'm second-guessing. The small space between us shrinks to nothing. until the stiff fabric of my tuxedo is pressed against the white material of her dress. This is the closest we've ever been, save for that brief moment earlier. I was annoyed then, at her for asking, at myself for capitulating. Women chase me, not the other way around. And, ironically, the one woman whose attention should be a given is the only person whose lack of it bothers me. I admire her for treating me with a callousness I didn't expect, for not getting swept up in the pomp and circumstance of what is, at the end of the day, nothing more than a business arrangement. However, it's put me in the strange situation of having to pursue what I want from her. My expectations of this marriage never included a wife who wants nothing to do with me. It would be convenient, if not for the fact I find Scarlett captivating and intriguing. I want her attention. I have no idea when I'll kiss her again after this, so I intend to savor every second. Most of today, the gold foil invitations and the 1,000+ attendees and the flowers covering the end of every pew, seemed unnecessary. This feels very necessary. The thin lace of her veil tickles my palms as I raise my hands. I cradle her face like it's a bubble that might pop, like it's the most precious possession I own. Her pulse thrums rapidly just below her jawline. Her eyes turn heated, betraying how her body hasn't moved at all. I hesitate for a few more seconds, letting the anticipation build to a breaking point. She may want to try to forget this day, this moment. She won't be able to. Our lips collide. I can taste her surprise, followed by relief the torture has ended. I'm not finished though. I slide my hands down to rest on her waist as I tease my tongue along the seam of her lips. I swallow the slight gasp that allows the entry I'm seeking. Then she starts kissing me back and I forget everything I was trying to accomplish. Our kiss is fireworks in heat and passion.
Combustible.
Explosive. Electric. More than a cold fusion of assets. It's a struggle to remember where we are. Why it's not an option to bend her over the nearest available surface. Ice can be chipped away at, but fire? Only fools trifle with fire. Fire destroys everything in its path. There's a split second right after I pull away and end the kiss where this feels real. When I'm looking at her and she's looking at me, and that's the extent of anything that matters. It lingers between us. And then it's gone. I present to you for the first time Mr. and Mrs. Crewe Kensington. I incline my head. Scarlett gives me a barely perceptible nod. And we turn, facing the crowd that is clapping and cheering and standing. We're married. The woman standing next to me is my wife. I've had almost a decade to get used to the idea. It wasn't long enough, clearly, because the words sound strange in my head. Maybe marriage is one of those things that can't be prepared for. Maybe it's that I care about her, about the significance of the vows we just exchanged, and I didn't think I would. I take the hand hanging limply at her side, and we start our descent. Past my father and Candace and Oliver. Past Scarlett's parents. Past the politicians and celebrities and the business moguls. People who think they're witnessing a fairy tale, and people who know a monopoly was just secured. The aisle is long. I keep a smile pasted on my face for the full few minutes it takes to traverse from the apse of the cathedral to its narthex. As soon as we pass the final pew, I let the fake expression fall. There's a small army waiting for us outside the doors. Scarlett is ushered away by two women immediately, and I'm left to nod along to the wedding planner as she talks. It's probably an accurate representation of how the rest of our lives together will look. The reception is worse than I imagined it might be. Usually I'm selective about who I socialize with. Tonight I have no choice. Every person here wants a moment with me. A chance to offer congratulations and earn favor. Scarlett is surrounded as well. The first time I have a chance to talk to her is several hours after we left the altar, during our first dance. She's looking at me, but she's not really looking. I know it's purposeful. I caught a glimpse of vulnerability earlier. Now she's reinforcing her walls, battening down the emotional hatches. I shouldn't care. It shouldn't make me want to push. Maybe we should have practiced this too, I suggest, as she moves stiff and unwilling in my arms. For a second I catch a glimpse of a smile. I think we should set some ground rules. 4? She asks, glancing away. Out at the admiring onlookers surrounding us. A few cameras flash. Us. Scarlett is no longer pretending to pay attention to the crowd. Her eyes fly to mine. You want to discuss this now? You're still leaving tonight, right? I figured it would be best to hammer out some details before then. Plus, you've avoided me since we got engaged. I avoided you before then too. Well, it ends now, wife. I feel her back tense through the thin fabric of her wedding dress. And you thought our first dance would be the most appropriate venue? I figured there was a higher chance you wouldn't walk away during the conversation, yes. I'm not a coward, Scarlett states. I never called you one. Her chin rises to a defiant tilt. There's nothing to discuss, crew. I said I'd marry you and I just did. That's the extent of us. The start of us. The extent, she reiterates. I assume you want separate bedrooms? She holds my gaze. I have a chef and a maid. One of them will show you to your room when you get to my place tonight. Sex. Be discreet. With you, Scarlett. Her throat bobs as she swallows. I don't know yet. Maybe sometimes. Maybe sometimes. I shake my head. You don't want anything from me. It's not a question. She answers anyway. I don't want anything from you. Okay. Okay, she echoes. We don't need to pretend. I'm not pretending. Those 3 words linger between us. The rest of our dance is silent. When it ends, we both move on to our other obligations. Scarlett begins dancing with her father, while I twirl Candace. It's been years since I wished my mother was alive so viscerally. But this day, this moment, it's one I wish she were here for. From what little I remember and have heard about Elizabeth Kensington, she was sweet and calm. She softened my father's rough edges, which have only sharpened over time. Today would have been romantic in her eyes. Rather than Candace's endless babbling about the dinner and the cake and the flowers, I imagine she'd ask me if I feel different as a married man. Lecture me on how to treat Scarlett. Maybe she would have talked my father out of the agreement to begin with. I'll never know. After the song ends, I ask Josephine Ellsworth. I catch Scarlett's surprised look as we walk onto the dance floor, like the thought of me dancing with her mother never occurred to her. You outdid yourself, Mrs. Ellsworth. I compliment as we spin. Everything was perfect. Unlike her daughter, Josephine is modest and demure. Pink tinges her cheeks before she glances away at the sea of elaborately decorated tables surrounding us. Call me Josephine. And it was my pleasure, truly. I'm glad you appreciated it. I half smile at the emphasis, under no delusions about who Josephine is referring to. I also correct my earlier assumption. She has more fire than she lets on. I've gathered Scarlett isn't the sort to accept decisions she didn't make. Scarlett doesn't do anything she doesn't want to either. I feel my brow wrinkle with confusion. Josephine smiles, and there's an almost daring edge to it. Don't let my daughter convince you she had no choice in this matter. Of course she had a choice. Scarlett would have been stupid not to accept this, though. And she's not. She's not, Josephine agrees. But she's smart enough to know her options. She doesn't need you for anything, crew. I muffle the smile that wants to appear in response to her earnest expression. This is remarkably similar to the conversation I just had with Scarlett herself. She may not need anything from me, but she's getting plenty. Yes, she is. I wait, but that's all she says until the song ends a minute later. Thank you for the dance, crew. Scarlett chose well. And she did choose. No matter how she acts. Indifference is a means of survival in this world. I imagine you know that as well as anyone. With those parting words, she disappears into the crowd. I head for the bar, craving a moment of solitude and a stiff drink. Today has felt endless. Every minute meticulously planned from the moment I woke up. I order a whiskey from the bartender and lean against the counter serving as a makeshift bar. I stay in place once he hands it to me, sipping the amber liquid and surveying my surroundings. Quite the event, Mr. Kensington. I glance to my left and almost choke. The liquor slides down my esophagus with a stinging stab, rather than the usual pleasant burn. Mr. Raymond. How nice to see you, sir. You can call me Royce, he replies, adopting a similar pose beside me as he orders a drink. I hide my surprise. Royce Raymond is a media mogul, whose production company consistently churns out blockbuster hits. There's not an actor in Hollywood who doesn't want to work with him. He's famous for his hands-on approach to everything. Supposedly, not even a PA gets hired on one of his sets without his say-so. He's just as well known for his antisocial tendencies, which include snubbing many of the coveted invitations he receives. I'm shocked he's here. I'm glad you could make it, Royce. The older man makes an unintelligible sound. Are you in New York for long? Last I knew, his primary residence was in Los Angeles. Long enough. Long enough for what? You'll be taking over for your father soon? That's the general assumption. You'd have to ask him for the specifics. I've never much cared for Arthur. Too power-hungry for my taste. Although, I suppose you're the one who just married Brilliance. I hold his gaze as he studies me appraisingly. Money isn't the only reason I married Scarlett. I expect the words to sound false, to ring with insincerity. They don't. A bold statement for a man who just inherited an empire. Don't confuse me for my father. If that were the case, we wouldn't be having this conversation, crew. What conversation would that be? Roy smiles. You know I have no children of my own. I do. I'm entertaining the idea of passing the torch. Would that interest you? A partnership? He shakes his head. Full ownership. It's been 50 years. Nothing lasts forever. When I find the right person, it will be time to move on. I assume you know I have no experience in the film industry? He chuckles. I'm looking for someone with good business sense and a moral compass. The latter is difficult to find in this world. Thank you. Another chuckle. I'm not looking for a figurehead to collect a hefty percentage. That I could find easily. I've never entertained any of your father's offers because I've seen what happens to companies underneath the Kensington Consolidated umbrella. I know how business works. But it's not how my business works, how it will ever work. You would want me to choose, I realize. Arthur is what? 54? 56? I wouldn't be expecting him to hand the biggest office over anytime soon, son or not. I'm happy in my current position. I'm certain you are. But it's different to inherit versus to earn. I built everything I have, same as your great-grandfather. Because you had to, in order to succeed. Kensington Consolidated is my legacy. No sane person would turn their back on a thriving birthright to hack it on their own. I'm not sure your new wife would appreciate that characterization. I open my mouth and close it. That's different, I finally manage. Is it? Royce challenges. I find it difficult to believe there wasn't a place at Ellsworth Enterprises for Hanson's only child. I believe Scarlett had diverging interests. Ellsworth doesn't own any magazines. They offer limited opportunities in other ways as well. Perhaps, I acknowledge. Royce picks up the glass the bartender delivered without me noticing. Think it over. And congratulations. I expect great things from you and the new Mrs. Kensington. The end of the reception passes more quickly. The important, older guests begin to leave. I'm left to drink and talk with people I consider friends. The wedding planner, a petite woman named Sienna, is the one who tells me it's time to make our grand exit. Where's Scarlett? Changing. She'll meet you in the lobby. When I get to the lobby, Scarlett is already waiting. She's wearing another white dress. This one has straps and no train. The silky material clings to her curves, covering her from head to toe in an ivory waterfall. All I get is a cursory glance. Good. You're here. Let's go. I grab her hand before she can take a step. She doesn't ask what I'm doing. Doesn't move as I release my grip and trail my fingers up her arm. Her hair is still pulled back in a fancy knot, baring her shoulders and neck. I trace all the exposed skin, savoring the goosebumps that raise on her skin. I take another step closer, pressing my body against her side. She inhales sharply. In the wide empty space it's all I can hear. The music and chatter coming from the ballroom sound distant and muffled. Neither of us say a word. This is a silent truce. My hand falls away. Your move. Scarlett turns so our bodies are flush. Her eyes scan my face. I have no idea what she's looking for. I don't know if she finds it or not. But she does kiss me, which is what I was looking for. Her taste hits my system like a drug. Something about Scarlett, her prickliness, her beauty, the fact she's my wife sharpens sensations. I can't recall the last time I kissed someone else, expecting it to go no further. That's the only way I've kissed Scarlett. I pay attention to things I normally wouldn't. Not distracted by flying clothes or finding the nearest hard surface. She smells like lilac and tastes like champagne. Her warm curves crush against me as she deepens the kiss. I slide my hands down her back and settle them on her hips, tugging her closer even though there's nowhere to go. We're already pressed as tight together as two people can be. If the hem wasn't out of reach, I'd pull up her dress and slide a hand between her thighs. Instead, I journey back north, cupping her left breast and confirming she's not wearing a bra. She moans my name and the sound ricochets around my insides. This was supposed to be a tease. A preview of what she's missing out on tonight by choosing to fly across the Atlantic. It's turned into torture. She's affected, but so am I. Rock hard and desperate. Scarlett pulls back first. I let her move away, watching as she straightens her dress and smooths the fabric. I want her badly. I've never been this affected by a woman before. If she wasn't a former Ellsworth turned Kensington, wasn't my wife, I'd tell her exactly how much. Describe exactly what I want to do to her. Hell, I'm tempted to do it anyway. But then she smirks triumphantly, knowingly. And I'm reminded of just how far out of my depth I am with her. You want nothing from me, Scarlett? I pose it like a question, but it's a taunt. Nothing, she reiterates. Her voice is as resolute as it was on the dance floor. But there's no empty edge this time. There's a teasing lilt that calls out my lack of indifference, but also tells me there's at least one thing she wants from me. Before either of us can say anything else, Sienna appears and herds us toward the front of the hotel. She's talking a mile a minute, relaying details I don't care about. I gather the gist is the walk we're about to make to a waiting limo. A smaller hand slips into mine right before we reach the doors. I have no idea when the last time I held hands with someone was. This shouldn't count. We're the main event in an elaborate show, and this is just one piece of the choreography. But for a few seconds the warm press of her palm is all I can focus on. The doors open to a dazzling display of light and sound. A literal carpet, white not red, has been rolled from the entrance of the hotel to our waiting car. Small potted trees strung with twinkling lights separate the pathway from guests tossing flower petals. I force a wide smile onto my face. A glance at Scarlett shows she's beaming just as bright and false. Our families are waiting by the limo. Cameras flash as I shake my dad's hand and hug Candace. I watch as Scarlett hugs her mom and gets a kiss on the cheek from her father. Like a dutiful husband, I help her into the back before climbing into the car myself. New dress just for the car ride? I ask as the limo begins to move. You expected me to fly 6 hours with a 5-foot train? I didn't give any thought to the clothes you're wearing, actually. She raises one eyebrow. I raise one back. Do you have anything on underneath? There's a glimpse of amusement before her expression shudders to blank. Something you'd see if we got married for real. I get what she means, that we're not the traditional love story. We didn't meet at Harvard, bonding over a harsh professor at a study group. We didn't date for years. I didn't propose on a rooftop covered with flowers and pop a bottle of Prosecco. But we are married for real, Scarlett. She tilts her head to stare out the window instead of replying. 15 minutes later, we're pulling up to the private terminal of JFK. Bye. That's all she says before climbing out. I watch from behind the tinted glass as she talks to the driver for a minute before an attendant comes over to retrieve her bags. She has 3 of them, which makes me realize I never asked how long she would be gone for. The driver gets back into the car. Scarlett heads inside the airport, and the limo pulls back into the busy traffic. When it stops for a second time, outside a building on Park Avenue, I'm confused. Then I realize where I am. I step outside into the humid air and walk into Scarlett's lobby. It's expensive and minimalistic. The space is mostly black with gold accents. There's one desk, which a man with gray hair is standing behind. He gives me a respectful nod as I pass. I use the plastic card Scarlett gave me to call the elevator, and then type in the code I memorized. She was right. Her place is nicer than mine. I step out of the elevator. The far wall is mostly glass, showing off the terrace that spans the full length of the building, overlooking Central Park and the reservoir. The floor plan is mostly open, the spectacular view uninterrupted. There's a neat formation of white couches and a gleaming black Steinway sitting in the corner. I walk deeper, discovering the formal dining room, a living room, the library, a study, and then the kitchen. Finished touring the downstairs, I walk upstairs, peeking into each room as I go. There are 8 bedrooms, one of them Scarlett's. My bags and boxes have all been stacked in the corner of the bedroom farthest from hers. I wonder whose idea that was. Most of my belongings, the decorations and furniture, were put into storage or left at my old place. The bulk of what I brought along were clothes. Rather than unpacking or sorting through anything, I lie back on the white bedspread and stare out at the shimmering skyline of Manhattan. I could call someone, a woman, Asher or Jeremy, go out to a club or a bar. I'm too tired, too drained. Looks like I'll be spending my wedding night alone. Chapter 7. Scarlett. The warm summer air is tinged with a hint of smoke when we step outside the restaurant. A slight breeze ruffles the hem of my dress and blows my hair back. Jacques pauses to kiss both of my cheeks. Magnifique, Scarlett, he declares. Loudly enough, the group who exited ahead of us turns to look. This line will be magnifique. A triumph. He pulls me in for a hug. You need anything at all, you let me know. Oui. I return the warm embrace.
Merci beaucoup.
Jacques departs after a few more Franglish phrases. My French is enough to get by, but I'm far from fluent. Jacques and I learn to communicate through a nonsensical mesh of the 2 languages, while collaborating on my new label. I loiter outside the bistro where we just ate dinner for a few minutes, debating whether to call a car or walk the few blocks to the hotel where I've been staying for the past 2 weeks. Want a smoke? The question comes from my left, delivered in a thick French accent. I look over to see a blonde-haired man leaning against the brick siding of the building. He's wearing a leather jacket and holding a lit cigarette. I walk over to him, choosing my steps carefully on the cobblestones. I'm not a big smoker. I abhor it, actually. It's a gross, grimy habit I associate with the reckless and a disregard for personal hygiene. Framed by the soft glow of streetlights and distant glimmer of the Eiffel Tower, it suddenly seems more sexy than repulsive. So does the lazy smile being flashed my way, paired with a slightly crooked nose and a jaw covered with a light layer of stubble. I'm working on quitting, he tells me. Seems like it's going well. I look pointedly at the gray smoke curling up from the orange tip and dissipating into the dark night. He drops the cigarette and snuffs it out with a heavy boot. I'm André. Scarlett. A beautiful name for a beautiful woman.
Merci.
His eyes light up.
Parlez-vous français? Je parle un peu français y admis. André.
Your pronunciation is very good. Thank you, I reply. I've been here for a couple of weeks. It's improved. Are you staying much longer? No. I'm leaving tomorrow. Headed where? Home. New York. The big fruit, he declares. I laugh. Apple. Yeah. Would you like a memorable final night? The insinuation is obvious. In the way his body is angled toward mine. The smirk dancing on his lips. I hesitate. When I approached him, this is exactly where I thought it would lead. We both know it. Now it's on the table and I'm undecided. The rings decorating my left hand suddenly seem heavier. I didn't expect being married to feel any different. I signed a contract that happened to include a religious ceremony. My loyalty to crew can have conditions. I've been gone for 2 weeks. He's probably had a rotating door of women coming through my penthouse. Growing up, I watched my mother send my father off on business trips with a travel safe, knowing full well he wouldn't be traveling alone. I promised myself I'd be different, wouldn't be the fool who fell for the fairy tale. But I angle away from André anyway. All I was looking for was a cigarette. André's hand sneaks into his jacket and emerges with a pack of them. He hands me one. A smoker, after all? I shrug. We all do things we know are bad for us, right? He holds a lighter out and flicks the flame to life. I hold the end of the cigarette out, letting the fire lick the paper until it ignites. Your husband. I follow his gaze to the massive diamond resting on my ring finger. I could have taken it off as soon as my plane left the tarmac in New York. Instead, I've worn the symbols of my marriage every day I've been here. I've adjusted to the weight and the sparkles. If I ever do take them off, it will feel strange. My hand will feel naked. No. Pardon. I assumed. Wrong, I finish, taking a single drag of the cigarette before I drop and snuff it. The street is littered with them. I should go. André says nothing as I walk away, trench coat swishing around my calves. I'm annoyed with myself. A fling with a Frenchman sounds perfect. It's been weeks since I had sex. I can track it to one night even. After crew chased Evan away, I didn't cast my metaphorical net out again. I turned down the 2 men who approached me later that evening. I knew I'd have the same problem with them that I would have had with André. I pretend it was crew kissing me, touching me. I refused to do that. It would be a concession of the worst sort. I'd rather be celibate than let one man fuck me while pretending he was someone else. It would let crew win in the worst way. He only has as much influence over me as I allow him to have. The street is crowded with chatter and laughter. I don't stop at any of the rowdy bars I pass, which are all filled with Andrés with arousing accents and smooth suggestions. The only spot I stop at is a wine shop on the same block as my hotel. I pick up a bottle of Bordeaux and carry it like a newborn into the lobby, and up the stairs to the 3rd floor. My room is spacious, and yet I head out onto the tiny balcony that juts off the side of the hotel and overlooks the Seine. It's barely large enough for the one chair out here. I kick off my heels, shed my coat, and use the corkscrew provided in the room to open the bottle. I rest my toes on the wrought iron railing and stare at the city lights, occasionally taking sips of the tart wine. I could be in André's bed right now, having sweet nothings whispered in my ear in French and warm hands running across my skin. Instead, I'm quickly nursing the bottle equivalent of my 3rd glass of wine. I'll feel like shit in the morning. My flight leaves early tomorrow, so I'll be back in Manhattan by noon. I'll likely have to face him before brunch with Sophie and Nadia the following morning. It's been complete and total silence from crew since I left after the wedding. No asking if I landed safely. No wondering when I'm coming home. Nothing at all. Exactly what I wanted, what I thought I wanted. Instead, I think of him saying I'm not pretending. Recall the feel of his lips against mine. Chastise myself for doing both. Crew is a cliff. Dangerous. Challenging. One wrong step could be catastrophic. You're stronger than this, Scarlett. I'm not though. Not when I'm alone with no chance of facing consequences. That's confirmed when I slip my phone out of my pocket and log into the security app for my penthouse. It's just past 1 a.m. here. Crew is reliably home by 7 p.m., earlier than I ever used to return. I flip through the cameras until I find him. He's in the kitchen talking to Philip. There's sound but I don't turn it on. I drink wine from the bottle and watch my husband, still bizarre to think let alone say, talk to Philip while eating a plate of pasta. His suit jacket is off but his tie is still on, hanging slightly crooked as he twirls pasta on his fork and smiles. He's home and alone. I fall asleep watching him. I missed Manhattan. I didn't realize how much until I step onto the tarmac outside the private wing of JFK. The sight of the skyline is an unexpected relief, like treating a wound you just realized was inflicted. My lungs fill with the scent of exhaust and wet cement. The commotion wakes me more than the espresso I downed on the plane. Car is waiting. I climb inside and instruct the driver to take me to my office. I'm going to need to delegate most of my responsibilities at either Haute or Rouge, what I've decided to name my clothing line, but I haven't decided how to handle either yet. Managing both might be possible once I have more of a design team in place for the clothing label. I'm happy to spend as little time at my penthouse as possible. Juggling two demanding roles is a certain way to accomplish that. My arrival back at the office causes a stir. I stride past the cubicles and down to my corner office, half listening to Leah as she trots beside me, spouting off everything I'm supposed to handle today. I feel like shit. I changed out of a wrinkled sundress on the plane, into the tight sheath dress I'm wearing now. The stiff fabric feels constrictive. My head is pounding and my limbs feel heavy. 3 hours of sleep and most of a bottle of wine might not have been setting myself up for success today. Crew's fault. 2 weeks away from him were supposed to settle me. Remind me of how little my life has changed and that my priorities haven't shifted. Scarlett Kensington can be the same person as Scarlett Ellsworth was. 3,625 miles sounded like a lot. Sounded like plenty of distance. They weren't. I thought about him while I was attending photo shoots, when I was picking out fabrics, as Jacques was showing me sketches, last night when I went home alone. Leah keeps talking. Rather than admit I haven't been paying much attention, I tell her I have to make a phone call. She scurries out of my office, shutting the door behind her and leaving me in silence. I sink down into my desk chair and lean forward to massage my temples. For the first time since taking over Haute, I don't want to be here. I want to go home. Not out of wifely obligation or because I missed sleeping in my own bed. I want to get seeing him over with. The anticipation is worse than anything he might say or do. A couple of months ago, I'd expect him to act entirely indifferent to my departure and return. Now I don't know what to expect. It's annoying and nerve-wracking. I shake a Tylenol out of the container I keep in my top desk drawer and swallow it. Even if I went home right now, Crew wouldn't be there. He's been returning to the penthouse reliably at 7, although that might change now that I'm back. I know Leah gave his secretary my travel itinerary. If he wanted to, he could have known the second my jet's wheels hit the tarmac. But that would suggest a level of interest in my whereabouts I don't think he has. His behavior before and during our wedding was probably a novelty. Crew may have experience with women. He doesn't have experience with a wife. That title comes with weight even in an arrangement like ours. And I know I'm complicating matters by withholding sex. If I had already slept with him, that would have been that. By waiting, I'm giving it significance, importance, maybe even meaning. My intentions for waiting were to achieve the opposite. If I'd stayed for our wedding night, I would have had the sound of him promising to honor and cherish and love me running through my head while he was inside me. I needed time to establish emotional distance before I allow the physical distance to disappear. At least that's what I told myself at the time. I'm no longer certain it will make any difference at all. I stare out at the New York skyline until my head stops pounding. Then I stand and head into an endless slew of meetings. Everything I have to approve, which is everything, has stacked up during my absence. Photo format and models and photographers and products and samples and articles. When I'm finished with the final batch of approvals, I ask Leah to order me lunch from the cafe down the street and head back to my office. A familiar figure is waiting on the couch in the seating area just outside the door. I sigh, my headache returning in full force. "Hi, Mom," I greet when I reach her. Scarlett. Her green-brown irises skate over my appearance with a discerning eye. I got dressed on an airplane, but she won't find anything to critique. "What are you doing here?" She's only visited me at Haute once before. My father threw a small fit after I purchased the magazine without his permission, not to mention money, and my mother is skilled at self-preservation. I don't blame her for deferring to my father. Hanson Ellsworth is a formidable opponent. I promised myself a long time ago I would never defer to my future husband the way my mother has always acquiesced when it comes to my father. I wanted to see how married life is treating you. It's fine. A query that would be easier to answer if I'd actually seen or talked to Crew since our wedding. Something in my mother's voice makes me think she might know that already. I didn't tell her or my father about my trip to Paris, but I wouldn't put it past her to dig it up. As far as my father is concerned, I'm Crew's problem and responsibility now. But my mother is the ringleader of the New York gossip circuit. Nothing happens on this island without her hearing about it. I break the pointed silence. Was there anything else, Mom? I've got a lot of work to get done. No, nothing else. Let's get lunch next week. I'll have your secretary set something up.
Fine.
I agree, knowing arguing will be pointless. My mother pauses. You chose well, Scarlett. I sigh. Chose what well? Crew. The sound of his name hits me unexpectedly. I tell myself it's because I wasn't expecting that to be her response. We both know he wasn't a choice, Mom. We both know you've never gone through with a thing you didn't want to, Scarlett. She raises both of her perfectly manicured brows, as if daring me to disagree with her. I tell myself I don't because it doesn't matter what she thinks. I've got a lot of work to get done. All right, I'll get going. Just he's your chance, Scarlett. I tell myself not to answer. For the third time my brain doesn't listen. My chance for what? I already have everything I need. Your chance for happiness, sweetheart. I scoff at that, then glance at Leah's desk. She's trying very hard to act like she's not listening to this conversation. Crew Kensington? He's a means to an end. Nothing more. Treating this like the business relationship it is will make me happy. My mother purses her lips, but she doesn't argue. I'm used to her small bursts of maternal concern buried between critiques and strict instructions. You'll be in the Hamptons for the 4th next weekend, right? Shit. How is that already next weekend? My parents throw a massive party at their house in the Hamptons for the 4th of July every year. I've been dreading it more than usual ever since I learned I would already be married to Crew by the beginning of July. We'll be expected to act like the united, loving couple we aren't for a couple of days. Yeah, I'll be there. And Crew. I look away. I assume so. That sounds better than I'll have my secretary ask his secretary. The small shake of her head makes it clear that's not the answer my mother was looking for, but she doesn't comment further before she turns and leaves. Rather than head into my office once she disappears, I walk toward the kitchenette around the corner. I pull a sparkling water out of the fridge and carry it into my office, pressing the cold glass bottle against my forehead as soon as I'm out of sight from the rest of the floor. I take a seat at my desk and spin around so I'm staring out at the skyline. My vision blurs as my focus disappears, turning the sharp angles into a jumble. Home feels different now. 3 hours later I leave my office. Leah looks up as soon as the door opens, ready for a request or a question. Instead I tell her, I'm headed out for the day. If she's trying to mask her shock, she's doing a poor job of it. Her coffee almost gets upended and sticky notes go flying as she struggles to comprehend my statement. It's... Leah glances at the clock on her computer, as if I'm unaware it's not even 5 p.m. yet. I have some personal business to take care of. I've been gone for a while. Sure, of course. Despite the fact I'm feeling worse instead of better, I manage a smile. I have a life outside this office, Leah. That makes her panic more. Of course you do. I didn't mean Please don't fire me. I laugh, then wince as my head gives a particularly painful throb. I'll be back in first thing tomorrow. Leah nods. Before you go. I pause. Yes. Your husband's secretary called earlier, while you were in the meeting with Lillian Morris. And she called about the Rutherford Gala for the Children's Hospital on Friday. Mr. Kensington is requesting you attend with him. Fine. Leah looks relieved by my answer. Okay. I'll let Celeste know. No need. I'll handle it. I'll have to talk to Crew eventually. It might as well include a conversation about how we'll handle our joint social calendar. Leah very obviously wants to ask me what I mean by that, but doesn't. I want my employees to feel comfortable approaching me, but I don't invite or indulge speculation about my personal life. That policy has been more difficult to enforce as of late, for obvious reasons. I let the news coverage inform my employees of my hasty engagement and marriage. Telling someone something invites an opinion on it. I say goodbye to Leah and head for the elevators, texting my driver to let him know I'm leaving. 20 minutes later, I climb out of the car and walk into my building to take another elevator up to the top floor. When the doors open, exhaustion hits me so fast I feel dizzy. This penthouse has always been a safe space for me. Somewhere I can be Scarlet. Not poised or prepared or professional or anything anyone expects from me. I resent Crew for taking that sanctuary away from me. Around him I feel the compulsion to be perfect. More so than I've ever felt with anyone else. I care what he thinks of me. I can't genuinely say that about anyone else, even my parents. It's a problem. One I don't have the energy to think about right now. Especially since he doesn't appear to be here. There's nothing indicating he ever has been. I'm not sure why I expected my home to look different, but I did. I thought there would be some obvious evidence a man lives here now. Maybe boxers on the floor or a tie draped on the couch or a strip of condoms on the coffee table. There's nothing. Not even a water stain on the teak coffee table I picked out. The tidiness is really all I absorb before I flop face first onto the white couch. It's uncomfortable, having my face smushed against the cushions. The construction crew hammering away at my skull isn't all that relaxing either. I'm too uncomfortable to fall asleep and too comfortable to move upstairs. I must fall asleep though, because when my eyes blink open, I'm no longer alone. At first, I think the shadowy figure must be Philip or Martha. Then I realize it's too broad and tall to be either my chef or my maid. Recognize the way my traitorous heart starts beating faster for no good reason at all. I'm lying down, no exertion in sight. Rough trip? Crew asks. The low, rough timbre of his voice washes over me, temporarily taking care of the headache. Adrenaline erases exhaustion. I forgot how stupidly symmetrical his face is. I groan in response. My head still hurts. My throat is dry and my muscles feel stiff. I feel like shit. I gathered. There's a dry note to his voice that makes me think I must look as terrible as I feel. I shouldn't care. I do. Crew Kensington is the last person I want to exhibit any sort of weakness in front of. He approaches me hesitantly, like I'm a rabid animal likely to attack. If I could move my head, I would. I'd stand up and go far, far away. Somewhere I can't smell him and sense him and see him. I close my eyes like shutting off that sense will help. I just need a minute before going upstairs. Go do whatever. Have a drink in the library like usual. How would you know what my usual is? Crap. Shit. Fuck. I keep my eyes closed and hope my face doesn't say I browsed the security footage instead of watching Netflix while I was in Paris. You're just predictable, I guess. Crew hums. It's an infuriating sound that gives no indication of whether or not he believes me. I consider opening my eyes and decide I'd rather not know what he's thinking. A warm palm presses against my forehead. I flinch. The physical contact is unexpected. So is the gentle way his hand brushes my hair off my face. My skin prickles, reacting to his touch even after it disappears. How long have you been like this? I don't know. I'm hungover or tired or jet-lagged or all three. The couch was closer than my bed. I haven't left the office before 5 ever. The last sentence isn't necessary. I feel some strange compulsion to justify the fact I'm splayed out on the cushions like a starfish while it's still light out, to prove I don't sit back and collect a paycheck. Once again, I shouldn't care. But I do. I care that my mascara must be smudged and my hair matted, and my work ethic appears questionable. Crew doesn't reply. Then suddenly I'm not lying horizontal on the couch. I'm weightless, at least that's how it feels at first. A few seconds later I'm rocking. I focus on the solid press of his chest and arms. My head isn't appreciative of the movement. The rest of my body embraces the sensation of Crew carrying me. But I protest anyway. What the hell are you doing? How out of it are you? I thought it was obvious. I'm not out of it at all anymore. I wish I were. Every sensation I'm experiencing right now are ones I'm fully present for. Worse, I'll be able to remember this later. The way he smells good and feels even better. The press of a metal band against the skin of my thigh that symbolizes he belongs to me in a way many people would consider permanent. I clear my throat. This is sort of sweet of you, but I'm fine. I pack as much conviction into the last word as I can muster. I think that couch would disagree. Crew starts up the stairs. I stop arguing. If he's going to be stubborn about it, I'm best off pretending this is no big deal. Like I let men carry me bridal style all the time. He turns to the right as soon as we reach the top of the steps and heads straight into my bedroom. You explored. The question comes out dry. There are 7 guest bedrooms, minus the one he's claimed as his own. This wasn't just a lucky guess. What's yours is mine, baby. Don't call me that, I mumble. The heat of his body is seeping into mine, and it's making me sleepy. Sleepier. I haven't slept well in weeks. Before I left for Paris, I was riddled with nerves about the wedding. In Paris, I worked late and was woken up early by the market underneath my balcony. I'm the sort of tired that blurs reality. I wouldn't be shocked if I wake up on the couch in an hour to learn this was a dream. Rather than dump me on the bed, Crew carries me into the attached bathroom and sets me down on the marble that surrounds the tub. What are you doing? I question. He doesn't answer, either with an explanation or by telling me I'm asking the obvious again. It is obvious when he starts the tap running and dumps in an assortment of the salts and soaps from the glass container set along the windowsill. Steam starts to rise from the water, swirling with the fragrant scents of rose and eucalyptus and steadily building bubbles. Once the tub is filled, Crew shuts the water off and pulls me standing. I'm worried I might fall asleep mid-bath. I'm far more concerned this sweet gesture might make me say or do something very stupid. Crew's eyes hold mine hostage as he reaches behind me and tugs at the zipper of my dress. I feel the back gape open and slide down. He pulls the fabric over my shoulders. With a quiet whoosh, the silk hits the floor, leaving me standing in my bra and underwear. He doesn't drop his gaze. Blue burns me, roots me in place. His touch is clinical and detached. Neither hand lingers as he unsnaps my bra and lowers my thong. In seconds, I'm naked before him. Do you need me to get you anything? He holds eye contact, not looking lower. I clear my throat and shake my head. I'm good. Arousal is a better stimulant than caffeine. I'm no longer worried about falling asleep and accidentally drowning. I'm standing in front of him totally naked while he's completely dressed. After he ran me a bath. And Crew is acting like all of this is a normal occurrence. I'll be having a drink in the library if you need me. There's no missing the teasing in his tone. I hope it's because I called him predictable, and not because he suspects I spent nights in Paris spying on him. Okay. The word flies out fast. He needs to get out of here. Before I find out how serious he was about the begging. Before I beg. Crew disappears, closing the bathroom door behind him. I climb into the tub, letting the hot water envelop my body inch by inch until I'm accustomed to the temperature. Feels like heaven. The steam clears my head and the warmth chases away the long day of travel followed by work. I sit in the tub until the water starts to cool. Once it's tepid, I climb out and pull on a silk robe, not bothering to dry my hair or brush it. When I walk back into my bedroom, there's a glass of water on the table next to the bed, along with a bottle of Tylenol. I stall in place for a few seconds, unexpected emotions threatening to overwhelm me. After taking 2 pills, I slip between the cool sheets and immediately fall asleep.